Social media seems to think that tools like ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot and Claude are going to replace developers. There's an incorrect assumption that improvements in AI are exponential from here on out. And I see a lot of fear mongering posts on social media that are like, my 10-year-old just wrote a web application in 5 minutes using ChatGPT. Software developers are cooked. CS graduates are cooked. Everybody's cooked. It only took me a few minutes of using GitHub Copilot last night to realize that we are definitely not cooked. I've been working on a really simple web application with basic APIs, nothing crazy, and I thought, let me give Copilot a shot at creating some test cases for my application. The general structure of the test that it produced seemed reasonable, and it produced some test configuration script, but simple, small details that any human being would have caught, it just couldn't get because it wasn't using the context of the code base. There were import statements that were trying to import things that didn't exist, variables and routes that didn't exist or didn't match the name that I gave the route. And at first I was like, maybe it's just one or two errors, but it was like multiple errors. And I spent enough time on it to realize that I should have just started writing the test from scratch and asking ChatGPT here and there when I actually needed it. These AI tools work great if you're starting from scratch and you tell it like, hey, create a web application with user registration and login functionality. It will write code that probably builds and actually executes. But if you give it an existing code base with real world complexity and you ask it to extend some functionality of that application, it cannot do it. If you give it a task like, hey, we need to increase our test coverage of this web application to 85%, there's no way it's actually going to do that and create functioning code. It does not use the context of the code base and integrate that context into the solution that it produces. And these are tasks that the average developer should be able to complete pretty easily. I'm not saying that testing and writing tests is always easy. It can be boring, tedious, difficult to reason about how to define a test so that you're including the right amount of functionality in the test. But these companies are bragging about how their models are blowing these benchmarks out of the water. And the benchmarks that they're using just don't matter in the real world. I saw that OpenAI was talking about how O3 was like scored in like the 99th percentile or something in competitive programming. I'm like, great. 99% of developers are not doing competitive programming. The only place that might be relevant is in the interview process. The AI assistants are still very helpful for software developers and they boost productivity, but I don't think you need to be worried about it replacing software developers' jobs. Or if you're in a computer science degree, you don't need to be worried about, well, when you graduate, AI is going to take your job. Even for junior level tasks, AI still cannot reason over simple things. It still doesn't have an intuition for gathering context in the environment and producing a sensible solution. If I were you, I would ignore all of the noise that you hear on social media about software developers are cooked, CS graduates are cooked. Just focus on using the AI tools to your benefit and let them boost your productivity and be more competitive in the job market.